Hello, everyone. How are you? Today, I want to teach you something very interesting, and that is more around trades in Clary. If you were writing smart contracts with Solidity before now, then you must have probably heard of or used interfaces while you are building. But that's not quite the point here. The main thing we should really address first of all is this: what are trades? I think that's the first thing we should actually discuss. So if I tell you that these are the traits of, let's say, a dog or anything, that makes you know that that's kind of more like the maybe features or things you used to know, things you used to identify something. So let's say traits are used to identify something. You get that? Now, in Clarity, we use traits more like free functions. And how do I mean? It's in a couple of stages or parts, components of traits. The first one is that you define traits, then you implement them. Okay, I get it. So that's how trait works. You set out the things you want to be identified in a contract, then you in another contract you implement it. So this definition of this first one, so here it's in the source contract or the parent contract, as I prefer to call it. So definition is done in the parent contract. Hope you're getting it. Definition is done in the parent contracts, and implementation is done in the implementation contract or the child contract. But then it's not technically correct to say a child contract. It's better to say implementation contracts. And let me give you more like an example, a real life example for you to kind of get how traits really are. So I'll explain it with the concept of ensuite bedrooms. So if we talk about ensuite bedrooms, they simply have, generally speaking, they have toilet and a shower. And come to think of this as the trade definition. So when we say trade definition, we are pointing out what should be in the function. This is trade definition. We are saying that ensuite bedrooms must have toilet and a shower. Then here is the implementation. John's ensuite bedroom. It has a shower and toilet. Now here is something you should also know. In the definition, it doesn't deal with the specs. It's more like outlining of general things and leaving you to define it how you want. And that is why in the implementation, the color of John's ensuite bedroom does not have to follow whatever is in the standard way of doing things or whatever. Hope you get this is kind of is a rough example, but that's simply to bring home the point about traits, definition, implementation, and a couple of examples just put things right. Now that you have a very good overview of how it works, now let's get to the actual code where I show you how it actually works. So I write quick functions for you to know how it works. And here I've already written out a couple of things. So let's say traits.class. Yeah. Now I can define a trace and say define define traits named multiplier. And this is where we create the function and say multiply Ewing's. We are simply specifying here no default value or no value Ewing's. And now here is how we can implement. Now this is what I'm saying. We define multiply here through multiplier. Now if we are to implement it, we just come down and say define read only multiply above a Ewing z Ewings. And now we'll jump to the body and say maybe okay asterisk okay asterisk. That's simply a way of saying it. Asterisk a z. And that's simply how it works. So we defined it here, we find it here, we implemented it here. I will still write more full-fledged contract for you to know it, but this is kind of the granular explanation of how it works in the most basic form. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe, tell your other developer friends, and I'll see you in the next one.